Twin Public Radio. This is RPPR episode something. I don't know what number this will be because I'm not sure when this will be posted. This is the Masks of Nyarlathotep post-mortem episode because we recently finished the campaign, and Sean and Ann, however, will be moving away to a far and distant land.
That was Washington.
Yes.
You know,
where there's strange customs. And
I really want you to check the time because I'm pretty sure that is the longest you have ever spoken at the beginning of an episode without being interrupted.
I know, it's... Yeah.
We got it out of our system before you even turned the light on.
we
Also,
He
no
faked us
time.
out.
Yeah, also...
There's that too.
that's kind of tradition, though. That's
This campaign took it pretty much has been a year since it started. Shanghai Bullets was started summer of last year. I can look up the
2014
exact
for anyone trying to date that.
Yes, and it is now June 13th, 2015. Oh my god, I dated this. Masks of
Hello,
Nyarlathotep.
listeners of the future.
Yes.
We greet you.
Since this will probably be posted in 2016.
when the neuromancers are
It'd
here.
be early 2016. Masks of Nyarlathotep is considered one of the classics of role-playing, the role-playing game industry, and it has a very long publication history and storied, and it has been played by thousands of groups over the decades, and I've run it once before in Call of Cthulhu, but this was before I was recording games for RPPR. In fact, it predates RPPR, and I wanted to run it again, but this time. So for my goals for it were to, one, run in Trail of Cthulhu, because I like the gumshoe system, and two, to learn what I've, and to take the lessons I learned from the first time I ran it, and from other sources like the Masks of Nyarlathotep Companion, which is a 600-page book about how to run this campaign.
Let's do the math right now because I'm interested. So the book is, let's see, not counting the reprints of the handouts at the back, which are also reproduced in the main body of the text. The book is 208 pages long.
Yeah.
So there's a reference to source material density of 3 to 1.
Yes.
That's
Well, but if you count the bolt-ons, it could very well be close to like 400 or 500 pages.
but those come from the companion by and large.
I mean, that was the other thing. One of the lessons I learned was not to just jump into Masks cold, like to have an established group ahead of time. That's something the companion also mentioned. Actually, several other people mentioned. And the idea was to start a prequel, run some adventures, get you guys used to it as a continuous campaign. And so that's when I ran Shanghai Bullets and the Dream Factory. And the Shanghai Bullets and Shanghai Factory probably had about another 40, or Dream Factory, probably another 40 pages worth of material. Each one is about 20 pages.
So those two are not connected to Masks?
No. Oh, no, not at all. In fact, the timeline is totally different because Shanghai Bullets was written for the 30s.
It's Trail.
And Dream Factory takes place about a year after Masks is supposed to. Which is much closer. Because the big reveal in Dream Factory is that talkies destroy or prove to be more effective as a movie marketing thing than the using mythos sorcery to make your movies.
Who knew?
Yeah, exactly.
And your cast is alive at the end.
Sunset of the King. That was a talkie.
Yeah, that was. Yeah. So my goals, aside from having Trail and having the prequel, was to make it my own. And because the first time I ran Masks very, very close to the book and only with the book. And this time, yeah. And so this one I wanted to make it my campaign and to make changes to it based on what I thought would be a more interesting game. And also for your own, your character goals and your character backstories that you develop. And so I wanted to make it a more unique experience. And I think that worked out. So why don't we first talk about
Bubbles.
characters. Because you guys did come up with quite a few great characters, some lasting longer than others. But you're one of the veterans, one of the survivors. You and Melissa having the few. It's very rare that
the two characters who survived the entire way through. So
never die. Well, except for that one time.
and I think part of it's
that we found out that we died.
yeah, your physical bodies died, and you were mentally transferred, and I'll get into that the Yithian angle in a little bit.
Thank you, Yithian.
I do appreciate that there were like not any out and out spoilers in the online game for the Patreon backers.
Yes,
because I did listen to that, and you didn't say anything about there being spoilers, and there was just enough stuff regarding them in there to be interesting without whelp.
Well, yeah, I actually didn't think you would listen to it, so I didn't explicitly, and I'll get into that in a little bit, what Bill's talking about, but there is a tie-in game, Eclipse Phase, a game of Eclipse Phase called The Evac, which is on the Patreon, which anyone can listen to and download. But first off, let's get back to Anne.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Margot and Sylvie a little bit, because there was quite a bit there. So there was... first talk about like how you came up with the idea with Margot and what you when you started out the campaign versus how she wound up. I mean, what was your process?
Well, at the beginning, you gave us like 4 types, and I just kind of took the last one, which was like the armed helm and kind of the bodyguard for Bill's character.
Yeah.
So like, okay, I guess I have to pump a lot into athletics and firearms, and I really had no idea what those numbers meant at the time since I'd never played this game before.
Fair enough.
And it actually ended up working out pretty well.
That's true.
You were kind of an Annie Oakley.
Because Margot became the murder machine for the group, though.
Yeah. And that was one of the reasons why I wanted to run those prequel adventures first, was to just get you guys used to the system. So if something happened to your character, or if you didn't like it, you could always change. You'd have time to change for the main campaign. But you started out with Margot, and she was quite effective. Were you any thoughts about how her ultimate fate, or do you feel? I kind of felt like that was sort of appropriate for what happened, because it is sort of a darker story, but I don't know.
I thought it was fitting because she's, this adventurer who travels the world even before this, and always in search of something new and exciting.
Okay. And you're the only one with, aside from those who are friends of Jackson Elias, who had their source of stability come in the most with Sylvie. And I did, and I'm sorry, I kind of did make Sylvie sort of a comical airhead at first, but I didn't realize you had
great cover.
It was a great cover, it even fooled me.
Well, I didn't have that story from the very, very beginning.
Was that a reaction from me how I roleplayed it, or I don't know?
Well, I didn't expect her to be a ditz at all.
Ross.
But I only developed that story.
Yeah.
I think when we were on the East Coast of the U.S., and I was thinking of having her be my character.
It's when we were in Boston. You told me about it when we got home.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I didn't think from the very beginning.
Yeah, because your character is very close to death at that. Boston was pretty dangerous.
Boston was pretty scary. I was like, okay, I need to start thinking here. Who's going to replace Margot?
Very good. So, Bill, you had a few characters.
Yeah. So as a player, it kind of takes me a bit longer to get into character. Like, I'm sort of okay with just staring at a bunch of numbers to begin with. I do like things to develop, but the thing is, with the potential mortality rate of, Cthulhu games in general, especially pulpier ones, especially this one, honestly, I'm having trouble even remembering my first character's name. At
Simon
this point.
DeWitt.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you, Ross.
Because he had the gangster vest, I remember.
Yeah. To your frequent chagrin. Yeah, not that much. I guess I kind of stepped into the, hold the gap role a whole lot. I remember Boston being the first time it really became apparent in that while Margot and Sulan were having adventures in the basement, and I think Sean was inveigling someone in the library because there were
I was running away with a book.
That's right. I was doing the second story job on the third story, and like, not that I intended for it to go this way, but like finding the actionable plot.
Yeah.
And so, like, just in that there was enough other kind of breadth of characters going on, I was okay with sort of stepping into that kind of cynical competence role. At least I like to think of it that way. Maybe it wasn't. I don't know. There were some times I did my own thing and it didn't work out well, but I think it did more than it didn't. I think the best thing about that character was probably like insult distracting Nyarlathotep in the Mountain of the Black Wind.
That was very good.
It was pretty obvious, like, to get sort of the at least passingly win condition for the Kenya chapter. Sean's second character,
Patrick,
the
reporter.
Yeah,
I have
had to do the run and gun job, but you made it pretty clear pretty quickly that someone else needed to, be on distract duty for the giant three-legged tongue.
Yeah.
So,
Avatar.
While I wasn't super into the idea of, starting the death chain of throwing characters away at that point, it seemed, let's see. I guess the two deaths I had were, neither one were strictly deaths, and both of them were pretty significant in that he, Simon distracted Nyarlathotep long enough to, wreck the whole sun plan, and then Alan Smythe spent the rest of eternity going through the various time streams, killing Huston over and over and over and over and over.
I mean, as fates go for Call of Cthulhu, or Cthulhu characters in general, that's
true. Yeah, I did have two relatively cosmic fates.
Yeah.
Not just gunned down in the street by cultists, so there's that.
Failed a climb check.
Oh, sorry, no, I didn't mean that personally. No, sorry. That wasn't a personal shot. That was just... Sean, when we get to the personal shots, you'll know.
All right. So moving on. So we got Melissa. You're one of the other veterans, survivors.
I lasted the whole time.
Sulan. I know you mentioned before something talking about your expectations before and after the game.
Well, I had kind of no idea what to expect, just because the little bit that I had played was D&D, and this was entirely different than that. And so I think I went into character creation thinking, what would be a character that I would be comfortable playing in a situation where I have no idea what's going on, which means that I picked almost entirely interpersonal skills, and the general abilities were like, well, I have to spend points on some of these, so I'll just pick some, but I didn't really know how in the world that would all work out, but it ended up working much better than I expected to. Like, Sulan ended up being really effective in a lot of different situations.
Yeah. Sulan was, I mean, and you and Anne also a lot of times came up with very sensible plans to get information without
bloodshed.
Without bloodshed. Not always, but that was probably one of the reasons why you guys survived.
Lasted as long as we did.
That
used the cultists versus killing them.
Yeah.
So.
Right.
Any thoughts on your character's ultimate fate? Or do you think?
I thought that it was pretty fitting for her, just because sort of wandering off into the countryside to be alone with her animals and not have to deal with humans ever again.
And her sister, I think.
Yeah, and her sister was there too. I don't know. I feel like
exile is better than death.
Yes, exactly. Like, it was a kind of chosen exile that, I don't know, was fitting for everything that she had been through.
Yeah.
She just needed grief.
Well, it's not like you can ever go back and check her out either. Yeah.
No, that is not an option for her.
Aaron, we'll get a little more to you jumping in midstream. But that was certainly interesting. And your first character was it is an NPC in the
he was an NPC, which Nels Nelson, which I still feel a little bit silly that I made him into a Texan when he's actually British. Yeah. So, but mercenary out in Africa. It didn't seem that big of a leap, so for him. The hardest thing with him, though, because because you gave me nails. Yeah. The hardest thing with him was that I was really trying to play him as somebody who was ignorant of the mythos, who he had just seen, brush wars, border conflicts, every other thing, every other rainbow of human atrocity, probably. But this was new to me, and it was hard kind of ramping that up to the ultimate fate of saying, "Oh, I'm standing under Nyarlathotep's legs." So, which is that, but I thought it was a good one.
Wearing a kilt, Lottie.
Yeah. So, and of course, the sanity lost to that point was good up to where it just completely initiated his fight motive. So, which is how I'm justifying him just going in guns blazing to the end, which was still to the detriment because he came back and bit us all in the ass.
Yeah. That's not in the campaign. That was just my idea. Like they recovered your body.
See, so. I knew you were going to use him in something, so I was just waiting for that other shoe to drop.
Yeah.
Way to be the Tom of this campaign.
Hashtag horrible.
Unintentionally though. So
yeah. No, he didn't volunteer for it the first time.
That being said, a Darlington is a Darlington. Yeah. So, and honestly, Lydia, I did not mean to make her as foolhardy as her drug-addicted brother. Well, because honestly, I thought she was actually that ultimately she was kind of more the background character, just providing that support. That's one of the reasons why I gave her 5 in credit rating. So in case those issues where we came up that we
credit rating
money,
was very useful.
It was useful, although it was maybe just a drop of the bucket because everybody else wisely took it, so we didn't have to ever worry about money issues. But no, the only thing I was kind of regretful that I didn't use more was dreaming up until the very end when I fell into the trap and somebody just had to follow me in.
You could have left him behind.
You could have left me behind.
But
I was going to back you up because
literally going into near death traps is a Darlington thing.
Right.
So
you could have just gone by yourself.
A Darlington thing in that you had played one other character with that name and decided to turn one bad decision into a trend?
It's called a tradition.
All right. And your final character was kind of,
and she was, I admit she was just kind of there, because as a cultist.
Well, to be fair, and I mentioned this before in the podcast, but in the first campaign, the players made characters who were very traditional sort of Cthulhu characters, which I'll make a professor, I'll make a detective, I'll make a reporter. But by the end of the campaign, KGB gun runner, KGB assassin, other KGB assassin, gun runner. Everyone was just a murder machine. What are your skills? Shotgun left hand, shotgun right hand. That was pretty much it. And so there was. I could begin to see that kind of evolution of characters going from I'll be an investigator. I'll be just cultists for Nodens, kill all the things.
Which that would be funny that ultimately, if you look at the evolution down, the de-evolution, if you want to say that is that I had a character who had who was a fighter but had no idea about the mythos, going to the support role who had a little bit knowledge of the mythos, and then right down to the full-blown cultist. I am Nodens. I take the kills. I'm still sorry I stole your bow, but
there for
anyways, and finally Sean from Monsignor Killjoy down. Any thoughts? Again, expectations beginning the game.
Well, my favorite character was probably actually Killjoy.
Yeah.
My least favorite was Patrick. I was trying to kill him the entire time I had him.
Oh, really?
Well, the thing is that I wasn't expecting to die that evening, so I hadn't built up a new character already. So I had to come up with one on the fly that would reasonably be in the scenario, and Patrick was the only option because you had chosen to use my source of stability, which meant, as the listeners have noted, I stuck with the same Irish stereotype. So I was trying to kill him from the moment I had him. So, because I wanted to just open up to this other character that I had been thinking about for a while, which was Balumko.
Okay.
Which is sort of a parodied Columbo, but then it didn't work out quite how I expected. It worked out.
It was frighteningly subtle.
Yeah.
It worked out a little bit better though because Ross actually gave me an artifact, so I really enjoyed the eye. That was a lot of fun.
So that was one of the other things I did too. The house rules.
We'll call it fun.
I wanted to give.
I enjoyed it.
The thing is, in Call of Cthulhu, your characters can level up their skills as they play. So by the end of the campaign, if you survive multiple sessions, you'll have really high level skills and you'll be really effective. In Trail, you could give people more skill points, but that doesn't work the same. So I thought giving us.
You also never gave as many skill points as the book recommends.
Yeah.
2 to 3 per session in the adventure at the end of the adventure.
I was waiting for Bill to comment on that.
You always handed out less than half of that.
Okay.
So we were always running on a low fuel tank.
Yeah. Well, that was true. I didn't want to have characters that would have, double skill points by the end of the game because that's part of the...
So you said... Yeah. So your criticism is that the game doesn't let the characters advance, but in comparison to the system it was originally in, but then you kept the characters from advancing.
Well, you advance, and I gave you access in other ways through the Mythos artifacts and resources.
Which worked out okay. Yeah. I mean, I was really attached to Killjoy, but at a certain point I just accepted that he was going to die, so he went throwing flaming bottles and drunk off his ass the way God intended.
You picked a fight with a large group of enemies.
You didn't give me a choice. The way my sheet was set up, there was no way I was going to survive, because if Patrick died, I would have taken such a massive stability hit, I would have died anyway. So I might as well go down in an epic blaze of glory instead of letting somebody else die. So it was fun. I enjoyed it. And after that point, I became much less concerned with character survival.
And we all learned an important lesson about closing the loop.
Yeah.
Yes. Always close the loop. And by the time we got to Sylvie being the one in danger, we had figured out how to handle a source of stability in jeopardy.
Yeah.
So it was great. But I really enjoyed the campaign.
Well, you guys did kind of ignore that Sylvie was coming in Shanghai. You're like, should we wait for her at the docks, maybe?
No. But once we recognized she was in jeopardy, the whole team went to help. Whereas when Patrick was in trouble, it was me.
Well, that also had to do with the setup.
The way Ross set it up.
Tell us about that.
Yeah.
And we were all previously engaged in something else. We didn't have the opportunity.
It was too late.
Well, everyone makes mistakes. And one of the things is about the Masks of Nyarlathotep is that it is your main opposition is a global spanning conspiracy of different cults, but they are not well organized. They
global is well organized.
Well, they have ties to each other, but they're evil and selfish cults, so they're not exactly that helpful. Between one, they sort of help each other because they have to, not because that they want to or that they care about each other. And so, one of the resources I used for this campaign was Adam Scott Glancy, and he told me he's of the opinion that any group of well-organized and skilled investigators could roll up the entire conspiracy, which is this campaign I think has proven that, because you guys for the most part were far better organized than they were, and you were reasonably effective in coming up with plans and taking out local cells of opposition, identifying them and blowing them up.
We actually worked really well as a team.
Having listened to the episode of The Unspeakable Oath since then, that he presents that opinion having never played or ran the game.
Well, this is true. He has read it, but he has not played it or run it, so that is true.
We could engage in an extended debate about how things play different than they read, but whatever.
That's a good idea
for an exercise to the listener.
So one of the things we should probably talk about is also from Adam Scott Glancy is that one of the things that's also suggested in the Masks of Nyarlathotep Companion and is having what they call tentpole NPCs that help you, or having an idea, basically a framing device to help introduce new characters into the game and keep the campaign running, because basically there's a lot of ways that the story can go off the rails and basically fall apart. And if you have a total party kill, and then somewhere sort of a minor encounter. If there are if the cultists just find you, or you tell everyone that, hey, we're researching the death cult, can you tell us anything about it? We're staying at this hotel.
Yes, we can. Let me show you this ceremonial knife. Where does it go? Here.
Yeah, exactly. Because I've read stories about groups of players who have done just that. It's like, hey, Mr. Gavigan, you know all about Egyptology. Can you tell us about this Egyptian death cult? You look trustworthy.
I made bad decisions.
You did, but you still would change. You didn't tell them what hotel you were staying at, or you switched around hotels.
We were exceptionally paranoid.
Yeah. So you made mistakes, but you didn't make utterly fatal ones. So what happened? So the idea of the tentpole NPCs is to provide something that will give the campaign a way to restart if you want to continue on, or you can just say, "Oh well, the world's doomed." And there are several characters in the book that can do that. For example, Jonah Kensington, Jackson Elias's former editor, could do that. Erica Carlisle could do that as well.
Really?
Yes, because she wants to make sure her brother's dead.
Yeah. That would turn dark fast.
Well, he's not. He's not. You don't find out about him until Shanghai.
I know, but as a huge betrayal at the end.
Yeah.
So these would be. So just make sure these were just characters that, in case one or more of the party was gone and they didn't have another hook, this was another easy hook to get them right
another
back
team
in.
of PIs and Miskatonic.
Well, we lost
professors.
the A team. You're the B team.
Exactly.
That sounds derogatory. Well, we got to go with the truth here.
And so, in the first time I ran the campaign, I actually used the Serpent person in London as that framing device.
Yeah, I can see where that would work.
Well, also Tom.
Yeah, Tom.
Yeah.
Tom was on board with that. But for this time, also because of ties to other RPPR campaigns and other things, I decided to use the Yithians. Because the Yithians are not explicitly in this. But
that was all you?
Yeah. No, they are. Yeah. Aside from Australia, they are in Australia, and so I figured, the Yithians would want to get sure that people would get their
liked
comrade.
that.
Because really, to only have them pop up in Australia would feel like a really abandoned hook. If you've got this time and spacefaring culture that can mind swap with people, and one of their own is split into three.
Yeah. Although the split into three is actually also from the Masks Companion. That is it in the book itself. You can actually see.
Is it only trapped as a single entity?
It is trapped as a Yithian.
Okay, so that would be potentially even more.
So there is art, and
that's what a Yithian is?
Yes.
Well,
Rugos Cone.
That's
Yithian
how they're
looks like.
Yeah.
And to be fair, also I did not
bodies
use the
they're
full
currently
name
occupying.
of
Kakakataka.
yes. Yes, you can try.
It sounds like an Aaron Copland
Right there.
piece.
So I decided to use the Yithians.
Hell?
Yeah. Yeah. So
Dramatic readings for you, the listeners.
that was what framing device. I was helping to get you in and to keep things rolling.
Yeah.
So
That worked really well.
Great.
Yeah.
That felt good as a fallback.
Whoa! I just realized something here.
yeah.
Yeah, there's it's misspelled at least once. The primary because the first one is just kakakatak. The second one under his picture is kakakakatak.
It's a different avatar. Don't let it.
My name is hard for your human tongues to pronounce.
Just call me Steve.
Given the Yithians, I wouldn't be at all surprised if it's just fucking with people about its name.
So there was one tie-in. The reason I bring the Yithians up is because one of the things that Glancy had the idea for was, this also tied in one of the problems with the campaign is that there are several places that are basically very hard for to see any group of player characters surviving. There's death traps that if you make the wrong decision, you're going to have a bad time.
And then there's the Mountain of the Black Wind.
There's the Mountain of the Black Wind. There's also the under the pyramid in Cairo can also be similarly.
We avoided completely.
Right behind.
Which apparently was kind of a choice because that was where they were keeping all the plot.
You guys got some of the plot.
We got plot.
But in terms of if you want to know what the fuck's going on,
we
got Cairo.
Right. That is something the players did in the first campaign I ran of it, and they certainly had a better idea of what was going on after it. But you guys no, we'll go straight to Kenya. I cannot spoil that.
Well, it is illogical.
But so to avoid the TPK problem, and especially with the Mountain of the Black Wind, because you have you could choose to have it
because there's 10,000 fucking cultists.
Well, the thing is,
just paint it.
And the Avatar of Nyarlathotep, and the High Priestess, and the Son of Nyarlathotep.
You're making your own case here.
Well, the thing is, you can't say in the book to say that it's not. They show up when the ceremony's not happening, so it's not as many cultists and stuff like that. But why would you want to do that?
Well, here we are in this giant thing, obviously constructed for a set piece, and yet there's no set piece.
Exactly.
Well,
So the first time, the players, most of them died. One of them got away, and then the serpent person said, "Here's some replacements."
Who got away? By the way,
I don't even remember. I think maybe Tom's character.
That would make sense because Tom.
Figure either that or Curry.
Tom seems to always want to be the last man standing at all costs.
Yes. That is his. So that's why I developed the Blue Thread and the Yithian, save game, sort of.
Yep.
Which two of us did not take advantage of, but it was still cool.
And one person didn't even have access to.
No, it was a good tactical choice. Plus, I got rid of Patrick, which I was wanting to do since the...
But the and so with the Yithian, that's why I added the reveal was what I didn't tell you at the time was that it was the Yithians can only send mines, through space and time. So your bodies would be, lost, and so they would just get you new bodies and put your minds back in those bodies, and that's why you woke up on the ship. But your minds traveled through space and time, and so I had a game set in the far future, in an alternate future, where your minds were trapped in comatose bodies, and cultists.
Entirely different game.
Yes, where cultists of the Yithians were trying to get you back into your right timeline.
Oh, I thought that was Omri.
Yeah. Well, Omri was the scientist at the end of the evac.
Yeah.
She was the one in charge of it. So there's an Eclipse Phase game where your characters are basically the MacGuffins that the player characters have to protect as the world is ending. But it's a high-tech future, and they're all like cyborgs, and it's an action game.
Are you going to say the name of this game? Or
I said Eclipse Phase. The evac is the name of the game. So it's not canonically Eclipse Phase because it's not the Titans. It's Nyarlathotep waking up and causing everyone to go mad. So that's a glimpse of the future of what happens if you guys fail. But they reset the timeline by sending you back in time.
So it's just the Titans in the future.
No, well, the Nyarlathotep is the Titans. Yeah.
No, Nyarlathotep. You are the Titans.
Yes.
And Nyarlathotep.
So there is a tie-in for you listeners at home, but that was sort of a conceit an experiment on my part to see if I could tie in games together and have sort of side games.
On that point,
yeah.
Who the hell is Omri and where did she come from?
That's a good
Anne and I are not familiar with that history, so if you could fill us in just a little bit.
Omri is actually a character from a campaign that Aaron was in, Sense of the Sleight of Hand Man, which is a Call of Cthulhu campaign set in the Dreamlands. And that was Caleb's character, who...
The originally male weird fiction author.
Yes.
Yeah, it was the one that the original Darlington traveled with. And
yes, who Lydia was looking for. And in Sense of the Sleight of the Hand Man, the characters are essentially all addicted to opiates. And
they're not just opiates.
Yeah.
Flat out opiates.
Okay, yeah.
So that explains a few things.
But
don't adjust.
They get in debt to a Chinese gang leader. And
totally Chinese.
Well, he's
totally
really
a gang leader.
And he forces them to smoke another drug, but this drug is actually a mythos drug that sends them, sends their mind, body, or sends their soul into the Dreamlands, because he's actually a mythos sorcerer, and he's selling the souls to allies in the Dreamland, evil creatures, but they escape, and so the whole campaign is about them finding their way through the Dreamlands, which is this weird fantasy realm, and trying to get back to New York, back to their own time and place. But they can't, their bodies are already gone, so when they get back to Earth, they wake up in different bodies that are basically comatose people in an insane asylum. And then, so Omri's character, Caleb's character, was a man, but he woke up in a woman's body, and so he got a little crazy after that, and they went back to New York to get revenge on the gang leader. So after that, and also during that campaign...
Which was why the Peach Blossom restaurant was all shot up when we got there.
That was
because we went in there and took care of that beforehand.
So I was tying in that campaign as well.
Also the reason why Caleb spoke the way he did is because when we went into the Dreamlands, his character was assuming that all the other PCs were figments of his imagination or they were representing parts of his psyche. So that
was his running gag in Sense of the Side.
Basically, Omri was imagining everything around him because he was just thoroughly insane. And
he was already a weird fiction author hooked on opium.
During the campaign, during the sense, Caleb's character also becomes the chosen of Nodens. Like he can just touch
Nodens is the one that Omri's associated with the whole time.
But the Yithians are kind of like, there's a weapon we could use against the okay. So that's how I tied it in. So that's also part of my thing about tying all my campaigns into one continuity, because why
make
not?
it the RPPR multiverse.
Pretty
Ross
much.
just loves Stephen King way too much.
I do. If he can have a mythos, I can have a mythos.
Pretty much.
Ours would probably make more sense than his does.
Oh. Well, maybe.
Having read pretty much every Stephen King that concerns itself with the Dark Tower, it makes sense.
Yeah, there's a wiki for it, Aaron.
Yes. I've not read the very last Dark Tower. That's the only one I'm lacking.
Okay, but have you also read all the other books that tie in?
Yes, I have, and I still look at it going.
Well, there's a difference between it being logical and considering some of them. Yeah. Some of them are admittedly poor writing, but it still makes sense.
Yeah.
But just
turtle that for a different discussion.
Turtle question. What happened to Omri's eyes?
Omri's.
That same question.
Oh, that's a great question.
Yeah, that is actually just conceit on my part. I just figured.
Weird if she didn't have eyes.
Well, I wanted to have it to be where you're seeing multiple versions of her through time. Like she's blind in the far future.
Wait, so your solution was pluck her eyes out?
Right.
Not just make her older or younger.
Right.
We pluck her eyes out.
Add wrinkles.
Not like wrinkles or scars that you could notice.
Not a tattoo. We pluck her eyes out.
Make her blind.
Not just blind. We plucked her eyes out.
I think what Sean is saying is there might be a bit of a women in refrigerators kind of thing going on there.
Yeah, just a little bit.
What? Honestly, it was a minor detail at first, but you guys really fixed on to that.
Okay,
somebody having no eyeballs is not a minor detail. That's a pretty drastic descriptive detail.
It was also her version of herself in the dreamlands you were seeing, so it's different. I don't know. It's just a stylistic. Jesus Christ!
It was not a mistake, because I think
it was just a choice.
I think we want to know the reason behind that choice, Ross.
Was it intentional?
As your friends, we want to know.
It's John Carpenter moment. It's supposed to look squicky, so it looks squicky.
I'm proposing that as a new episode tag for both the main podcast and the AP podcast. That was a choice.
That could be something in the future.
If that replaces mistakes were made.
I just wanted...
of all the creepy things that happened throughout this campaign, I think that particular one and the fact that it was so insignificant in actuality was really fun.
So basically, that was the parrot in the box moment.
Yes.
Yeah.
For Masks.
I had no idea that was that important to you guys. I would.
Well, we just wanted answers, Ross. We needed to know.
There has to be some sort of mystery.
Why are her eyes gone?
Double Odin.
Back.
So I guess that's one of your more memorable moments in the campaign. Were there one of them? So what are some of the other moments that really stand out in terms of what you guys did, or I don't know, and what kind of moments of the campaign stand out to you?
I didn't mention this, but I really liked the ghouls. I'm guessing that wasn't actually written in, but how we called upon them multiple times, especially to get into the cave.
When all you have is a hammer.
Yeah. The ghouls, that is also more from Sense of the Sleight of Hand Man. The ghouls show up in there as well. In fact, the ghoul in New York, in the Peach Blossom restaurant, is from that campaign.
And Bill made really good use of the ghouls.
And once you guys
that whole scene I really enjoyed.
The whole thing is if I give you guys sure, here, you could do that. There's a costume. When you guys latch onto something we're gonna. You want to talk to some ghouls? You can talk to some ghouls.
It costs too much stability use all the time.
Yeah,
occasionally,
And also
when
getting
the
to
crowd
go in,
was really against the wall.
and also getting to go through the dreamlands in Africa. So in Kenya, because we decided, let's definitely take that shortcut. What's this pit?
Yes,
and I got to use blasting caps.
True. Yeah.
Actually, my favorite ghoul moment was actually the London one, because that was a really good plan you guys came up with, and I was like, well, that certain person's screwed. So I was pretty.
I thought the farmhouse operation actually back tying up the loose ends on the Dream Factory.
Yeah.
Like the Dark Young was genuinely like maybe not creepy, but you want to talk about oh crap moments.
Yeah.
I think I was more worried about that Dark Young than I was than the actual manifestation of Nyarlathotep.
Well, and wasn't that right before you went hunting, so it had an extra horror significance for you?
No, that was right after. That did put me
time in tree stands.
Yeah, put me in mind of things about deer hunting and Dark Young that may or may not be forthcoming.
That was actually one of the things for me, was like trying to tie up as many loose ends as I could in the campaign and try and have it be as resolved as possible. And one of the things I kind of, for me, was like having these loose ends tied up, not like immediately, but relatively quickly, because I was afraid of, like, it would be cool to like have him show up at the end of the campaign or something like that, but on the other hand, I was really afraid of just forgetting about stuff like that, you know. So like I was like, yeah, like a couple sessions in we'll tie this off or something like that. So that's why I had them show up relatively soon. And I don't know if that if it could have been even better if I had waited until like Kenya and then show up.
No, I think it was really good the way it was. Yeah,
we took so many breaks because of necessity that had you waited too long, somebody would have forgotten.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
Nothing like the sudden, unveiling of, haha, I followed you here all the way from California. Who is that again?
Well, he could have just shown up as one of the partygoers.
Quick, look at Anne's notes. She'll have something about it.
Pretty much.
One of the ceremony attendees. They could have been the...
I think getting their own session where
that's true. They deserve it. I mean,
pretty much killed the F out of them.
Yeah.
was a much more deserving ending.
Melissa, any other... Well, you already mentioned the ghouls, I guess. Or were there any others?
Anne mentioned the ghouls.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Just blending the two females in the room, Roth.
Jeez. What were some of your favorite or memorable moments in the campaign?
There were a couple. The one being in Australia with the ghost dogs.
Oh, okay.
Scene, I know it was sort of it wasn't exactly a primary moment of the story, but I still enjoyed it just for the visuals. I think all of my favorite moments were when I thought, oh, that would make a really cool scene in a movie. That one, and with the gigantic chameleon that grew and grew. Like that particular scene.
She who's not who is.
I love the chameleon.
Yeah,
and those
I really enjoyed that whole thing. The fact that we had her and we didn't know what she was for. And, we're just taking care of her.
Pretty much used her exactly for what she was for.
And somehow we figured that out. I don't even remember, or maybe we didn't figure it out, but we just happened upon it that this is what we needed to do right now, and that it worked out splendidly.
Yeah, I didn't know when you guys were going to release, or if you're going to release her at all.
Yeah.
And those are both, that and the Ghost Dogs are actually both in the campaign as written. So, I did not add, those are not additions, believe it or not. And there's a whole section in the Masks Companion about, dealing with who is not what she seems. And,
so your players have acquired a giant chameleon.
Yes.
We don't even know
and you actually use it pretty much in the best way possible, which was to get rid of a group of cultists. Because she is statted out in the book, and she is kind of a badass, but she's not kill a god badass. So
just bulldoze a convention of cultists.
Yeah, you don't want to use her against
small convention, but not
basically
the big
let us
one.
get in.
Yeah. And the ghost dogs, they're just in there. It's the guy's in the hooked up to the Dreamlands. He's just there.
So it's yet another parrot in a box moment.
Parrot, apparently, but he's not hostile. He's just got the magical dingoes. That's what I do. Aaron,
well, going back to what you said you added, I did like the idea of splitting the Athenian and Australia up into 3 segments.
Okay,
so that was a cool idea, especially since one, they needed to control it and needed to essentially partition parts of it off that would only be useful to it, which is why I like it's like the engineering core, the emotional core, and then the other logical core for it. So.
And the really great thing about that is it keeps you you have all the mental benefits of a Yithian without the physical benefits of a 12-foot tall cone thing with pincers for arms.
And also, it mitigated sand loss for us as well from just staring at that thing.
I think you get hardened to the non-hostile
it's one
mythos
check.
entity.
It'd be one check. But also it did provide other challenges because of how we had to get the child, the elderly woman, and then the man. Which, going across that barrier and trying to figure that out, which we did get through it, but...
With casualties.
Casualties and...
Choices were made.
Choices were made.
But we got lightning guns.
No, we got lightning guns, but some of us felt the touch of Nyarlathotep in a bad way. So... but other than that, no, that was a really good idea, which I liked overall.
Yeah, that came from the companion,
and the nuclear ship. I did not realize that was something that was in. You said that was in the book.
Oh yeah, the Dark Mistress. It's in the Shanghai chapter. It's like they have. There's a radioactive glowing rock that used to generate steam to move it, and okay.
That was also one of my favorite scenes, but I think that's just because Margot and I got
you stole one of my favorites.
I'm sorry. You weren't in that part. I'm talking specifically about the part where she and I were.
And I think the reason,
suddenly I locked the door. What?
So I think you liked that because, you guys played that really well. I think Sean and I liked it because the idea of you guys inveigling an Innsmouth dude, with all the psychosexual subtext of that, being female Adam, and Ross played it off really well as, wait, girls are actually talking to me? I don't know what to do with this.
Well, that was
Dagon's blessing?
No offense, but my favorite moments were actually the character-driven moment, the player-driven ones, like that one, forcing you to play along. And normally you played along splendidly, and sometimes it was just annoying the hell out of you because we were rolling way better than you wanted us to. So Killjoy's death scene I loved because I took down so many cultists with me. And then the cone snail I loved because you did not expect me to see.
Jesus Christ.
Somebody out there come up with Coney's Island. Please do a tie-in.
I will pay you as much as Sean will to not do that.
But my absolute favorite was Margot and Sulan against the Innsmouth guy because that was fantastic.
It was so
that was hilarious.
That was the best role playing that I think we saw in the entire campaign, both from them and from you.
It was one of the few times that, the fact that I was, pretty much a hooker, that actually finally made sense. It worked a little bit.
And normally, when we do role play games, it's the silent kill everybody and then just stand back like a badass. But she jumped into the element and just started role playing like crazy, and I'm
you forgot I'm a girl? Watch this.
Wow, this is awesome. And then Ross played along beautifully too, because he's and afterwards he said, you know what, it actually makes sense that the Innsmouth would, it's perfect. And so Ross just let it go. The cone snail, though, that was just me.
Okay, what was the issue with that? What was your obsession with the cone snail?
I just wanted to see if I could do it, and I could.
That all this was? Okay, because I didn't ask
the role play equivalent of hold my beer, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, if there's one thing overall that kind of did bum me out about the whole thing, I can totally get that. From having played through it, I understand why Masks is considered one of the greatest published adventures there is, but at the end of the day, it's still a published adventure.
Right.
And, there's only so much room for those kind of moments. And I think the downfall of published adventures is, those are actually the greatest parts of role-playing, are the really character-driven. Yeah. And so it doesn't make a lot of room for that,
Well, I mean,
without horrendous amounts of work on the GM's part, and Ross, you're great, but you're human.
Well, I mean, the thing about Masks, the reason why it's considered such great is because of its structure and the plot and the fact that everything is connected. It's not especially historically, campaigns up to then were very linear, go to point A, do a thing, you're done. And this is here's what's happening. You can approach this problem at any kind of angle you can imagine. And here's how these guys will react, and it's a living thing, once it starts.
It's structured. I get that as a as a dynamic sandbox, not just something that can be approached from any angle, but also something that lives in response to that. It's huge. But at the end of the day, to be honest, I would still rather play anything you wrote yourself.
Well, but I think that's what made Masks workable, is because and this is going to sound like kissing Ross's butt, but like
I just did.
no, the sandbox.
Line up.
Yes, Masks is a sandbox, and it can work really well that way, but only if you have a good GM.
True.
If you have a horrible GM, it just becomes a sandbox that's essentially
You're
a Legend of Zelda
There's
game
no
to where you're
dinosaurs
just running
dug in
around the
it,
village
yeah.
with chicken the entire time. So if you have a good GM, though, even though I did occasionally get frustrated with some of the bolt-ons, I still really enjoyed the entire campaign, and I don't think that would have happened if we didn't have a good GM.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, there are a lot of things. I mean, that's the things my overall goal was to make it my Masks of Nyarlathotep, and I think I hope I accomplished that because
I think you
Yeah, you did.
by adding the elements, tying it into the larger RPPR mythos, whatever that is, and also picking and choosing what I wanted from it. I mean, there were certain things I left out, and there were certain things I added in. Like I had like the whole werewolf thing, which I'm glad you guys indulged me in. That was because I wanted to redeem that part because it's the stupidest fucking part of the campaign.
Is that actually in the book?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, because that was my least favorite part.
Because the werewolf thing, however, as written, is a red herring scenario. It's like an entire thing. There's
Yeah,
a literal,
that's the way it feels when you
Yeah.
start down that road.
yeah. And then, this is actually from Adam Scott Glancy, who says, "Oh, well, why not have the Vane family be connected to the Carlisle family? So Carlisle visit the Vane family. Ryu gets jealous of the girl. She curses him with mythos sorcery. There you go. And then I'm glad you guys went to Kenya next, so we could tie it off with Madara.
Well, I think that helps, but the problem with the whole werewolf scene is that, like, the tone of that and the feel of that story, it's like, wait a second, this does not match at all.
Yeah.
Like, where are we right now?
Yeah.
Wuthering Heights?
cosmic
like, I don't
horror
understand what's
and
happening to me.
suddenly Moors.
Yeah.
There are actually at least 2 other red herring scenarios in that book that I entirely left out.
Ooh.
There's one in Kenya. There's one in Kenya where you go to a hunting lodge and there's like ghouls there, but they're like children ghouls, and you just have to go deal with them.
But we could have actually probably done that one really well because we've got the history with the ghouls.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that
the
one-
creepy child ghouls.
Yeah.
I can't.
That's a different kind of
When you
crazy.
say child
exactly.
ghouls, are you talking about like adults who are in
No,
the...
they're children who are ghouls.
Oh, okay. So
There's art of them. She has a dolly. Yeah.
Tell me that in your other run through they did that, and
Nope.
Tom was.
I skipped it both times because I'm like, no, this is stupid.
Really? You had Tom right there in front of you, and you skipped children, ghoul children.
It's not all about Tom. It's not all for him. Like
I'm sensing you'll have some hostility here towards Tom.
I feel like if we asked him, he might have a different opinion.
yeah. But anyway, this is about this campaign, not that campaign. And the other one that I can remember is in Shanghai, where it's about like actual Chinese folklore about like demons and demon cats. And again, it's like my main problem with that one is sort of like what I had with werewolf, because it's like traditional mythology. It's not Cthulhu mythos at all, and that's like. It's one thing to have Gothic horror with like vampires and werewolves, another thing to have Cthulhu. But mixing them up, like the whole point of cosmic horror is that we're not the center of the universe. We're just, beset upon by aliens that are far. We're
And Gothic
small fish.
horror is superhumanist.
Yeah, exactly. It's about God cursing people and stuff like that. So they're kind of
Feels.
Yeah.
So much about feels.
yeah, and so
repression of
they're
said feels.
Yeah, Wuthering Heights.
and
Well, they're basically 2 different forms of realizing that you don't have control.
Right.
One is lack of emotional and physical control over your own body. The other is lack of control over
Full
the fate
stop.
of the universe. Yeah.
Yeah,
But with werewolves and vampires and all that, it's not really fate of the universe kind of stuff.
Right.
It's like fate of the individual.
It's egocentric
Yeah.
loss
Yeah,
of
and that's-
control,
and-
whereas the other one is the loss of egocentrism completely.
And compared in the scenario when you have one werewolf who's stalking the countryside versus standing in between Nyarlathotep's
The
legs on a
magnitude.
mountain. Yeah,
it feels.
there's a sense of scale here that's...
Yeah.
I had no idea he
Why
was
are we
Jewish.
thinking of werewolves?
Wow.
Not okay.
I have not. I'm going to say this now. I have held back on any of those jokes because
Why?
I'm looking up Nyarlathotep's skirt because it could just be regarded as a funny thing. But I'm trying to stay classy. You had to take that road. It was you.
We've already taken that road several times
But
during
not-
this campaign.
But not
At
during
least
this
Bill and I have. I don't know what you were doing.
RPPR, staying classy.
I looked up there, and the only thing I could think was Steve Buscemi.
So Yeah, so I see your point, and I just felt the two kind of genres of horror were mutually exclusive.
Yeah, they're not a great matchup.
Yeah,
like,
so that's why I excised the others.
I kept waiting for
Yeah,
the
like I
Manther
would really
in that
like to
one.
play werewolf game completely separate from. I think that'd be fun, but
not Werewolf, the game.
Nobody.
Yeah.
Sorry, White Wolf, we abandoned you long ago, so...
on its
Why are
path.
you apologizing?
Yeah, White Wolf
They
no
don't
longer
need to
exists. It's on
apologize.
its
I have
path.
good ideas, but...
werewolves.
Or we just play Werewolf, where it's like, oh, you a werewolf? Okay. Yeah.
Even your copy of Werewolf is Do You Worship Cthulhu?
Okay, well, all right. Moving on. Yeah, so that's why, and certainly, like, as we, time issues became more pressing, I started cutting out other side ventures.
Sorry.
Well, no, it obviously has nothing to do.
Yeah.
There are people who take their time, and certainly this could have been. I know one criticism we got, or at least in the early episode, was that I was giving you guys too much information through NPCs. NPCs were too talkative, but for me, my thing was that I would rather you guys have all the information you need to make your own plans and make your own decisions. Rather, and certainly if you get to the NPC and get them talking, I think you deserve it. And two, there's the time and logistics, like time between sessions,
Right.
and just limited focus.
And
Thing is, though, for first-time folks playing a system like this, like Ann and I don't.
Melissa. So
and
3
Melissa
out of
too.
4.
I don't think we would have had the patience to put up with the not getting anything out of an entire 4-hour session.
Yeah.
Like, which that could conceivably happen, though.
But-
I know,
Well,
but it
but I
is
think-
Well, if you pull
theoretically
the Charlie
possible.
Chaplin, that's certainly possible.
Yeah.
I think too that's a balance though, because if you get too much information too quickly, then you feel like, oh, I just walked up to the thing and it told me I didn't have to do anything
Right.
to get it.
And Ross navigated that pretty well.
Yeah.
So, whereas...
Yeah, if you got to the point where he was talking to you, but it was never... I don't think I made it that simple, because first you had to figure out who to talk to, and then were you actually going to talk to... What are you going to tell him? Like,
Well, and I think especially early on, where I certainly didn't. I don't think all of us understood sort of the scope of how big this thing was. It's like, wait a second, I went to play with this story and hang out right here. Wait a second, we have to go to 6 more places before we even know what's going on.
Well, and like, to cut you all possible breaks, Ross, like, we were aware of the potential time restrictions pretty early, and I think you managed that really well. But, like I told you after we wrapped the last session, I easily would have played this game for another 6 months, and I think,
Could have.
like,
Agreed with
not
Kyle
6
right now.
additional months, but, like, stretch it out and let that go. Like, I don't think it was ever rushed.
Yeah.
I think it was as fast as it could be without being rushed. Like, you did a really great job of working in the constraints you had. More love for Ross, yay!
And also,
Yes.
and also choice of system wise, taking it out of call and putting it into trail, I also thought was a good idea. One, because with the point spends, you could just get the information that you needed immediately without the possibility of potentially botched rolls denying it its critical information. Which, coming from experience of having to do a test play of a new scenario, that was just a run around.
I was gonna cut it open anyway, but I know you're amused at Melissa being my mom.
I was trying to avoid crinkling.
That's a good thing.
She was etiquette for the podcast.
I know, just trying to be there. She tried to be
Did we
polite.
learn nothing from April Fools?
Yeah.
Nobody cares.
Now that we-
I've actually been thinking about that a lot, and yeah, I think it was a lot of fun in Trail. But, like, the one thing I will say, even on the pulp end of Trail, I think this is still a pulpier game than that. Like, if I look at, like, having read through and kind of preparing to play with the Dracula dossier coming, preparing to play Night's Black Agents, I think this would actually do better in a 30s themed Night's Black Agents because it is so pulpy. And they're, like, it's not actually, like, the superstructure is a mystery, but the substructure, scene to scene, is thriller. Like, you get information gets you in trouble. Repeat ad nauseum. Like, and given that the, main villain's name is pretty much in the title, I think it fulfills the other, like, sort of description of a thriller in that a thriller is a mystery where the audience knows who did it. Yeah.
I mean, one thing in the original Call of Cthulhu is that your characters are very fragile.
Yeah.
A single fight with a normal person can end them if they roll, if the bad guy rolls a 1 on their attack roll.
Or a dog.
Yeah, or a dog, or a horse, or a shark. Yeah.
Okay, the shark's more let's be honest right here, not to completely
It is
drill.
perfectly reasonable that a shark should be able to kill a human.
No, that is reasonable. The shark was completely reasonable.
Yeah.
The dog was just bizarre.
The dog.
But about the shark, it's also been tested out.
Yeah. Anyway,
Dogs can kill people. I love dogs, but they can kill people.
Yeah.
They can, but
Depends on the dog.
anyway,
Pretty easily, too.
So one of the reasons why I wanted to use trails is so you guys would have a little more narrative control. So your deaths would still happen.
But we could.
But it would
quasi choose.
But it wouldn't. You wouldn't go out because you failed a single
percentile.
a single roll. Something like that. But I don't know. What do you think about this system, especially now that you've played enough? Like Anne, do you feel like your character? Like for me, sometimes I thought maybe your characters were too durable or too like there's certain.
We proved that wrong.
Only
yes.
for female.
Yeah.
Oh.
What?
What?
It's only for female.
Yeah, well, the two the characters did survive a lot longer.
I guess I liked that because I like the more actiony doing things than the interviewing, talking to people and getting clues. I like to just go in and like when we did our warehouse.
Oh,
Are you talking
about the ambush and where you lured the guys in to kill them?
Yeah, I like doing
the
more action sequences.
Okay.
So I liked being able to have a lot of points in doing those type of things and not having to worry about dying when being
Every single
Yeah.
time.
Because you could always guarantee that your single roll would actually work.
At least once per session.
But that could be
And
critical.
certainly
for
group
that
stealth
particular
checks, I think,
roll,
made a
though, so.
huge difference.
Yeah.
The group stealth
you
checks.
were outstandingly generous with that because that's not the way group checks work at all.
Okay, yeah. Well, I felt like it would just, again, it's one thing to at least get into position as opposed to, the thing is, if I wanted you guys to make it really hard for you to get caught, I could set really high DCs, and sooner or later you're going to run out of those points.
Right.
And I think I got the rules from Fear itself. At least that's what I learned them from. So that's what I was using. They had very simple rules with that. So
I actually liked the heat component, which came later.
I know that's from Nice Black Agent.
But I actually like that better.
Yeah.
And working with that than the constant stealth. Whereas there is a constant, the heat has the build up. Everything you do adds into and causes an effect against it later. Whereas with stealth, as soon as it regenerates, it doesn't really have a consequence anymore.
Yeah.
So I did like that.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. Next time I do a city-based game,
It makes me really wish that we were going to be in town for the Dracula dossier with Night's Black Agents. But
yeah, that would be fun.
Well, save up your pennies, pick it up yourself, and run it in Washington.
yeah.
Let's see. One of the other things. One thing we talked about were group dynamics. You guys mentioned that you wanted to talk because you guys there's a lot of pairing up and splitting up and stuff like that. My favorite example, of course, was Margot and Sulan going in the basement, the Boston Lodge.
And we've talked about that a lot, and that took a lot of effort because for any listeners who don't know, Sean and Ann are married, so are Melissa and I. So until Aaron was around, we actively had to work against separating.
Don't just go with your spouse.
We found ourselves doing it by accident.
I don't think it was accidental. I think we just took the Emily Post system and just ran with it.
Well, okay, not accidental, but unintentional. It just weird, it felt natural, so we did it until we realized we were doing it, and then, Boston.
Yeah.
Which we did survive.
Yeah, we did.
Largely, we stuck together though, as a whole.
You did have
Jason.
We did do a lot.
There was no major Scooby-Doo splitting up, so...
I always had somebody. I was always kind of drawn to splitting up with Sulan, especially later, because we were in it from the very beginning.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So I felt like it made the most sense. Like we are pretty well bonded. At this point.
You're the survivors of you're the soldier survivors.
I'm not so sure about
And
this.
I feel like there were lots of situations where if I wanted to make sure that nothing catastrophic was going to happen or that someone wouldn't shoot someone when I didn't want them to, I would go with Margot and we would just get it taken care of without any major problems.
Again, Margot,
I shot a lot of people.
No, but here's the thing. Like, there is a particular dynamic. If you have two girls go into a scene, it's automatically way different than if you bring a dude. Like, there's just things that you can get away with as two girls that you cannot get away with if there's a guy in the scene. And I think that,
Also, and Margot was the ultimate bullet shield, too, so if anybody was coming at you...
Bullet shield, bullet wielder, bullet everything.
The avatar of the bullet.
Yeah.
So I think, Margot and I just accidentally made a really good team. And plus, at some point, it's like, we have been through so much, we don't even have to communicate. We just know.
That's a good
there's a
They're
language.
pulling another Mombasa. Oh, yeah.
We didn't realize, Yithian brain swapping, that might have something to do with it, but...
That's true. Good point. Good point.
Hot Yithian brain swap. But yeah, like along those lines too, that like in as much as running it with the four of us as players, like I gotta hand it to Aaron for really doing a good job for stepping into like what could conceivably be a difficult situation to be part of the group, in that A, two married couples, B, who have already been playing this game together for 6 months, did a great job. And like beyond that, as much as the four of us playing was fun, the five of us just, escalated.
Yeah.
Well,
really
I was starting to, the game was good the whole way through. Don't take this as an insult. But I was starting to get a little tired a little bit, because campaigns, they go long, you have ebbs and flows. Mm-hmm. Aaron coming in created a huge new dynamic, and so it was like this big pump of adrenaline of crazy that just reinvigorated the game.
He's right here.
Yeah, I know. But I didn't have to play
The
the
funny
crazy.
thing is, Sean thinks that's a compliment.
No, I know. The thought process is, oh wow, somebody else who's gonna dial as much as I do.
Pretty much.
Yeah, so my thinking, the thing was, the reason why I wanted, I kind of planned it out from the beginning to have just you four. I know Aaron was probably available for the most part, but the reason I wanted to start, because you four were all new to the system and new to this campaign, and I wanted you to get used to the whole idea of, working in Gumshoe and figuring out this investigation before I introduced any new players. And I certainly didn't want, so... Aaron is an old hand at Trail and Cthulhu games, and it's kind of like in a video game where you have or a multiplayer game where there's the max level guy, and he's like, oh yeah, you need to do this, we'll do this, go here.
Well, and Aaron does have an investigative style that is all his own.
True. And to be honest, when it comes to character generation, I don't try to pull a David of min-maxing a lot of things. Because when I'm pulling Darlington into this, after Nails, because Nails honestly was kind of cannon fodder, and I treated him as such. But when I brought...
And that's why he came back. I feel you're taking him for granted.
Because if we're going to continue on, the Stephen King thread, sometimes they come back again.
But Nails had the elephant gun, so...
He did have the elephant gun. But no, Lydia... other than just the Darlington connection and with the joke, excuse me. Okay, I think I'm good now. Sorry. I was really wanting to make her kind of just the side tech character who who just kind of had dreaming, mainly because of that odd connection, not only to the Lamplighters that her giving that, but also because of her brother as well. And yeah, her ending was sad, but that's kind of a whole Darlington tradition at this point. But no, I was kind of made her to be the back support to you guys, so in case something should come up, because most of her skills were social ones. So
about the plot and everything, do you feel like you understood everything that happened, or were there any major confusion or questions that came up?
Not that I can think of really, because again. You're right. Talking at least old hat and playing Cthulhu, I could kind of see the bends around, kind of like Bill too, because we're just seeing the tricks up. But most of it was just keeping my mouth shut so I didn't ruin anything. Because I'm sitting around like, oh, yep, see, that's an instrument, that's a frog man, right, or fish man right there. Damn it, I can't say anything.
That was kind of a problem for me because even though I haven't played Cthulhu, I've read all of Lovecraft's stuff except for Dreamland's stuff. I haven't read that. So that was completely new, but everything else I'm like, okay, Yithians, okay, fish people, deep ones, we've got it, but I can't necessarily say anything. I can just give a knowing look to Bill, and that's about it.
Yeah.
Someone who's only read one thing by Lovecraft, I was really confused with the grand scheme of things. Like, I felt like I needed a graphic of like how all of these creatures fit into.
So even reading Lovecraft wouldn't have helped with that because
what this is based on multiple stories. It is like here. There's several. In order to explain the plot of what happens, like there is a 15-page section or 10-page section explaining the summary of events, what the Carlisle expedition was. See, here's the triangle: Grey Dragon Island, City of the Grey Race, Mound of the Black Wind. This is what I mentioned several times. And the Carlisle, there's a timeline of events, location, concerning the plot. So there's like multiple pages just to explain to the game master in very simple, direct terms, like what the bad guys are doing. And so it takes several pages just for you to, the spoilers are several pages long.
Yeah.
And so if you want to, if there are any questions, you can look right here. But yeah.
That does kind of point to one of the other things that I wasn't super in love with is it was kind of a Mythos monster mash. Not that there's anything you could have done about but I kind of like it as just a little bit of leavening or seasoning, in something. But
the thing is an entire campaign. You can't have just like one type of monster or like one monster and then cultists the entire time. You need some variety, I think, if it's a campaign. Like unless it was just people, you could have a campaign where all the bad guys were human. But if you or one monster. But if you're gonna, if it's either 0, 1, or many,
Yeah.
Well, and go ahead.
And it wasn't horrendous, but it was just a thing that occurred to me at points.
Yeah.
But that's actually kind of as a counter. That's one of the things I kind of did like about it is that
teach their own.
Well, in one that you had all of the disparate factions sitting here, even though they had something of a common goal that they wanted to bring the crawling chaos. It was all for their own purposes and their own mindset. Each thinking that once Nyarlathotep showed up, they would be the favored one. Which in reality, it would look down and say, "Thanks, I eat you all equally." But that kind of brought up other competition, which, depending on how the investigators go, how we kind of did, we could set other factions against each other for our own causes, which is a lot. It provides more opportunities than just everybody being completely united on the front, and I don't think would have made as much sense too, especially since we're looking at 1920s, 30s, where communication was not as ubiquitous as it is today.
Well, you still have wireless and telegrams. So.
Yeah. True, but but also you have some of these cultists,
Plus, they literally have magic. They can literally just open a gate to the other side of the world.
They can do that too, but also using that is draining their sanity as well. So
they're all zero sanity.
Creating, whatever
they're getting it for free at that point.
Yeah. But still, they're crazy enough where they're probably not going to work too well with each other, other than just being at the negotiation table. So this is.
So that was another idea I got, mostly from the companion, but also from Glancy, is that they're bad guys. They kill people, they commit human sacrifice, they do a lot of really bad things, and so they're certainly killing each other for the sake of promotion is not beyond them, and so. That was the thing you guys, I think, did best in London, but the idea of setting them against each other.
There were also two really clearly defined sub-factions of the faction.
Yeah, which is not really
a pretty obvious idea.
Yeah, it was not really, but that's not really expanded upon in the book, that you have these two cult leaders, but it doesn't really mention that what they think about each other or anything like that. But it's pretty easy to read between the lines.
Right, and I think, in a metagame sense, especially having Sean in our pocket there, oh, really? Relations between, people from the Commonwealth and
it's pretty
and Egyptians in the 20s.
Well, and for the most part, the book did okay with the history, except in Kenya. That's my one gripe where it really falls short. But London,
was it accurate to 80s scholarship? I think that's the thing that's worth questioning. Whether that river can be stepped in.
It's accurate for the 80s if all you've read is the early 70s scholarship on Kenya.
So, considering they were writing for the gaming market,
Yes.
Probably pretty reasonable.
Yeah.
But
not saying it, not trying to write up an excuse here. Just
if they do a new edition, that's the one section that I would suggest they take another look at. Well,
the companion talks a lot about that too. The chapters are pretty lengthy in going over historical, and they have good bibliographies about what's available there, and pointing out some of the anachronisms within this book. I don't think this will ever be rewritten,
especially considering one of the authors is no longer with us.
Yes, there's that. So I mean, it was originally written in '83. This
book is old.
Or '84, yeah. So
the history of historical scholarship. Where's the Inception noise when I need it?
It's called historiography.
Yeah, but
entire courses on it.
It's turtles all the way down.
Yep.
Yo, dog, I heard you liked history.
So, if you were, why don't we explore that a little more? Like, if you were rewriting, or if you were revising, or if you were going to run this for another group in the future, what would you do? Like, and broadly, like, what kind of things would you do? So, like, and if you were running it for some of your friends, what kind of things would you emphasize more? Just kick the door and shoot everyone, or more interpersonal, like talking to guys? Would you leave every chapter in, or I don't know? Any thoughts on that? Or
not really. You have to start with me.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm just going left to right. It's my. We'll come back to you, Bill. What about you?
I would probably steal the overall idea of the structure and then run something else entirely. Because
like road trip, maybe.
I self-promotion there.
Like structurally, like this has informed a lot of like ways I want to try to approach the Armitage Files and stuff. But like, I don't actually. That goes again to why I say like a 30s serial numbers Night's Black Agents might play this better, because I don't actually know how much I like Trail, and I'm sure Call is even worse as like a globetrotting game. Like, I think the constant shifting of the locale actually kind of takes something away from it. Like,
because,
especially
the sources of stability and stuff like that.
Exactly. A lot of that. And two, the more I thought about it, the more I kind of like, I've been on, a Lovecraft kick the past couple of years, like listening to the H.P. Lovecraft literary podcast and all that, and listening to them talk about the research on Lovecraft, especially in his letters and stuff, the degree to which like his fiction was the fiction of a place. Yeah. And like how with a lot of his correspondence, he, talked about that with Derleth about like, don't write New England stuff. I'm from New England. You're from Wisconsin. You write good Wisconsin stuff. Like, I think it's, obviously structurally this is great, but the thing the globetrotting kind of takes away from it is really getting kind of that, this is not the right word, but for some reason my brain wants to say mise en scene. Just sort of the feel of this is a story of a place,
right? This is definitely not a story of a place. It's a story of and Call of Cthulhu is by itself very much in Arkham County or Arkham country.
So I mean, I guess it's kind of a cop-out to say this is really great, but I wouldn't do it. But this is really great, but I wouldn't do it.
All right, Melissa, would you try it? If so,
I probably would, except I would do what I usually do, which would be make a lot of the things much more visual.
Okay.
Because I think that
there are a lot of handouts in this campaign.
Yeah, but I think the thing that I struggled with, because there's so many little bits of information, and you go for so long without having a place to put those little bits of information, having some kind of way to organize them or make it tangible would have been helpful to me. So if I was going to run it, I would probably look for ways to do that.
Okay.
Not just here have a thing that says this random bit of information, but here's a place to put it so that when it becomes relevant, you're going to see the connection.
Yeah. That's a really good idea. I mean, like there is a ton. There are, I think about 50 handouts, something like that. 40. Yeah, I'm seeing 44.
I would probably find a giant world map.
Yeah.
And put tiny things on it.
I've seen that done before, I think. And that would really help, and certainly having some way to figure out, like, certainly photos of all the Carlisle expedition.
Right.
But a way to put all your, like, a file for each one or something like that.
Right.
And you could even do, like, actually with Nice Black Age, you have Conspirament.
Yeah.
What Conspirament is a made-up with a conspiracy pyramid where you figure out the org chart, basically, of the conspiracy. Who's the leader? Right. Who's this cell? Who's this cell? What are they doing in relation to each other?
I mean, it's funny that there's not really a lot of tiers to the Conspirament.
Yeah, they're all sort of
Nyarlathotep. Yeah. It's really... yeah. There's not even really an overarching one. They're all on the same level, almost. So, I mean, it would be more of a web. But
it would be a web, but yeah. That's a good point. But yeah, Aaron.
It would be helpful as well.
And again, I can't say as much just because I only have like half experience from everything else that was flowing here. But if I were to run this, honestly, I would see about the characters almost trying to do a more pulp action archaeologist act of it, just because. Well,
NBA all the way.
Well, do that, but also since it's 30s too, and yes, it would be such an inspiration just to do. Let's just go for full-on Indiana Jones artifact hunting, trying to steal them away from the cultists.
Okay.
Before you do that, or one of your first missions that is your task to get this thing, you suddenly get more information about it, and you realize maybe you're stealing it for the wrong people. And then
this belongs in a museum.
So you would use the...
this belongs in the pit, so the cultists can't get to it.
So you could use something, an organization like the Pinhue Foundation as the framing
essentially,
device.
yeah.
In fact,
maybe not that one.
No, actually, that could be a great thing. Like, they hire you as Egyptologists to get a thing that they need, and then you find out, oh no, the Pinhue Foundation is bad. Let's go contact the people at Mortem.
And then that's when you can possibly get in contact with a Yithian or another alternate organization like Lamplighters. Somebody who would say, all right.
That's when Jackson Elias shows up, and so you reframe it. So that's interesting. So rewriting the plot
could work really great.
So that could be a prequel adventure, and that leads into that. And they're like, let's meet in New York. Yeah, I got a hotel room over
and then
here.
you can just begin off from that.
Murder.
Yeah. So that's a really cool way of reframing it. Sean, what about?
I've actually thought about this a lot, and I actually have two ways of doing it.
Okay.
Like, one would be Bill's similar cop-out, because I don't feel like Trail or Call I've looked at, the skills they give you feel very Eurocentric, so it doesn't seem to fit for globetrotting. It fits in Europe or the Eastern United States better. And so if I'm going to, if you're going to stick in the 1920s, I would just scrap the whole campaign, grab your Yithian angle, and run with it at the Locarno conference and the build-up on either side, the build-up and the fallout from it. It would be glorious with the Yithians trying to mess with that. It would. But I don't want to give too much away because I may eventually run that, and maybe I'll do it with you guys when I come.
Okay, so your first idea is to make a new campaign based on the same idea.
Stealing your Yithian thing.
Okay.
Nothing from Masks at all.
Nothing from Masks at all. Just from Raw. Well, the only thing it's getting from...
Can I get you a napkin because your nose is kind of looking a little... There's some brown on there.
Well, the only thing it would take from Masks at that point would be the 1920s. Because I actually do not feel like this campaign belongs in the 1920s. If I was going to run it, I would retool it and set it in the late 1890s into 1900s, early 1900s, and culminate it in the Boxer Rebellion instead. And so
that is actually pretty interesting.
I think it would work much better because they completely ignore all of the socio-political developments that occur in the 1920s. So what's the point of even having it in the 1920s? You might as well run it earlier because they're not taking into account things like the Great War as much. That's mostly player-driven when it comes in. They don't take into account the League of Nations. You could play that up as a conspiracy, but they don't. There's so many things from the 20s that they just don't even consider. But the late 1890s, early 1900s, culminating in the Boxer Rebellion, with this, since Egyptology is already a thing, I know people think of it from the interwar period, but it's been going on for decades. Yeah. In fact, the height is around the turn of the century. And so then you can tie in so much more, and so that's what I'd probably do with it, is either I'd scrap it completely and run with the 1920s angle, or I'd keep the campaign and scrap the 1920s angle and go with the turn of the century.
There is a supplement.
Both, but especially the 1890s.
There is a Cthulhu supplement, Call of Cthulhu supplement, called Cthulhu by Gaslight, which is 1890s. And I think the main reason that they set this in the 20s is, one, that was what the main game line was set in, so everything had to be
Which makes sense because it's Lovecraft.
Yeah.
Like, it does make sense since most of his work is generated in the interwar period, and he does have that vibe. But I don't feel like this campaign...
Well, I think the thing was that they wanted to have a race against time and have it globetrotting, and I think the 1920s is sort of the earliest period where you could get around the world in less than a year.
There's a man named Jules Verne who would like to have a conversation with you.
Like, you can get around, at the turn of the century, you can get around the world in a year or less. It is entirely possible.
Well, but maybe, again, these are going to, like, the planes and,
Okay, you couldn't have planes, but how often did we use planes? Once. We should have done it more, because that always worked better than the stupid docks. But we did it once.
Yeah.
So...
Nobody waits at you at the airport in the 1920s.
Well, in one case that could actually, if you're... Well, in one case that could probably work easily, though, if you're wanting to do that, is just separate the pieces out into specific arcs. And then when you're getting to the next one, you can just say it's 3 to 5 months later when you're on another continent. So
yeah, but like the turn of the century thing could still totally work if you want to do the tie-in that you did with the movies, because guess what? That's already a thing at the turn of the century too. So most of this stuff, I feel like the 1920s conceit is sort of forced the way it's written.
Okay.
But if you're going to write a huge campaign, like I can see it from a business decision, they wouldn't publish a 200-page behemoth to go with their second-tier product.
Well, there are interviews in the Masks Companion with the creators of it, and they can explain more in there. So I won't. So get the Masks Companion, basically. That's sort of the big lesson for this. Get that book if you want to run this campaign.
Buy this book that Ross didn't write, but he still really likes.
I do like it. I did talk to the guy who was the editor.
He's not getting any money for plugging it.
I'm not. He's just doing it out of the goodness of his heart. So, Anne, if you had some time to think about that.
His cold heart.
I guess my main thing was it's just there's too much all over the place. So I think I just have to pick either like just the Carlisle or just one of the cults.
Okay.
And focus in on that. Kind of like how Bill said, like one region.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, wait a minute, we like did something with like gangs in China, and then we ended up doing like people in Hollywood.
All right. Well, those two adventures are not in the campaign. Those are the prequels. That is fair. I just had those so you guys would actually already be investigating cults before you just like. I don't want you to start like, dude, you all know is murdered in New York. You must travel the world to avenge no matter what. It's a little thin motivation.
Well, and like especially in the 20s, like Nyarlathotep kind of has an old world kind of feeling.
Yeah.
To where with kind of going with an American setup for most of us. I suppose your first character wasn't, and neither was Melissa's. But even so, like it just feels weird. Like, yeah, either we're going to start with the sort of things you started with, or hooray Yig cult, or Ithaca or something.
Well, there's a campaign for Ithaca. Out of print, and I can't afford it because it's like $200 now. Walker place, but
I guess apart from setting it backwards, the other really interesting thing I could think of would be what would it be like to set it forward. Bring it forward
Indiana
in time.
Jones.
No, even further. Like I'm talking like Delta Green era. What is the overlap of the Venn diagram for Masks of Nyarlathotep and Stephen Alziz?
You could make the Maoist revolt, Pol Pot, all of that as part of cultist stuff and work that in.
Oh yeah, set it in here now. I mean, Shanghai certainly could house dangerous cults. All those cities. It could. I think I've heard some people talk about or read some of that a little bit on the internet, but that would be a really interesting take on it. You have to do a lot of work. But I think it would be very rewarding, certainly.
If you want to set it even further in the future, even further future, taking
Masks of Nyarlathotep in Cthulhu tech. Yeah. What?
No, nothing in Cthulhu tech.
Nobody is allowed to play Cthulhu tech. So, but no, I was talking about taking it even further. Like I was thinking because you mentioned the Delta Green angle. play it up with what was the name of the Russian Smersh? Is that what it's called?
Are you talking about
in Delta Green, the Russian
GRU?
Smersh is something else entirely.
Yeah, Smersh is the Bond one. It's GRU 8, I think.
GRU 8.
Yeah.
So
it's a fictional cell of anti-Cthulhu Russian
within the GRU.
Yeah. So it's like Section 8 or something like that.
Oh, boy.
But Countdown mentioned Smersh, I think, but I could be wrong. But in any case,
I can tell you right where.
But saying that they got a hold of something, experimented with it wrong, and hello, Chernobyl goes up as a cover.
Anywhere in the near future.
I think we're just speculating about ideas of campaigns we'd like to run.
Which was the last episode of After Hours.
Yeah.
So.
Still,
it was fun. I won't deny it. So I think we've kind of covered everything a little bit. As much as you can. Are there any other final words you'd like to have? So I'll start this time with Sean. So for the campaign, in terms of playing it, thinking through it, talking about it.
I make no apologies for Killjoy whatsoever. I loved that character. I stand by him.
Any apologies for the cone snail?
No, none for that either.
That was very brave of you to reach out like that, Ross.
You should have known what the answer was.
Your hand smacked away completely.
But on the whole, I think we were very proactive, and I very much appreciate that when I do RPG stuff.
Yeah.
It's nice to have a group that works together instead of people that just go off and do their own thing and have no idea.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You guys did work as a team, believe it or not, and you did a good.
We really did.
And you worked, and you rolled up a lot of bad guys that way. So that worked. More ambushes and warehouses. That was pretty good.
Keyword docs.
See the warehouses of the world.
Yeah, there were
and the cultists within.
Yeah. Aaron, any comments?
No, I just thank you for letting me join you for at least the latter half of it, because I had always heard about Masks. It's one of those kind of perennial games that everybody else talked about, but I never got a chance to play in full, mainly because it's a long game. It's a long haul. It takes forever to get through.
Now you can never in good faith play the first half. Ha ha ha.
I can play the first half.
You can. I just kill off his character when he gets to Kenya.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
You're done.
That's how you close the loop.
That's how you go.
We get ants.
Yeah.
No, but I actually loved all the interaction with everybody on there. I will say, the only one I didn't, sorry, Bill, was I was not touching that goddamn rock.
That's fine. We chose to spend those points differently.
Except for those poor dogs.
I'll actually
you
bring
have a
that
strong feeling about that.
Well,
so.
I'll do the quick reasoning for that too. For those of you who have listened to the first Divine Fire, I walked into a nuclear reactor that was powered by a pinhole opened into Azathoth's realm. I became a horrible Shoggoth monster afterwards. I knew it was metagaming. I'm not making that same mistake twice. So, even though that was just uranium, and I would have gotten sick.
Choices were made.
All right.
You still spent the points to do the other thing we needed to get done.
Yeah,
so
there you go.
You're a team player for your own definition of team player.
So, Melissa, any final thoughts on Masks and Sulan?
So the one thing that I do want to say was that I was having fun, but the moment that I was really hooked was when I got to ride the horse and kill the giant flying monster.
Oh, the hunting horror?
Yeah, the hunting horror.
Oh, and
suddenly I was having a
No, this was all the way back in New York.
Oh,
yeah,
really?
like
Okay.
way back at the beginning, because I had one random point of writing, and I had regretted it. I'm like, I'm never going to use it. And then I used it in the most wonderful way, and I thought that was really fun.
Yeah, that was when I did Kool-Aid Man with the truck.
Yeah, no, that
that was at Erica Carlisle.
That was awesome. Like,
yeah.
In as much as Killjoy antics frequently maybe weren't the best choice, that was one time
really
it
works.
really worked out.
Like that whole scene was we were all scattered, like none of us were together, but all of us got to do some random really cool thing. And I after that, that was really fun. I was pleased with that.
That was it. I think this was a successful campaign because there's so many scenes like that. Like, which one was that? Oh yeah, that was one.
Kill the flying horror with the horse.
So, Bill, any final thoughts?
I did, the criticisms I've levied here notwithstanding, I really enjoyed the crap out of this for all the reasons that I've also cited here, and also for the one that, I came into this, having one, not played a lot of investigative games and a lot of like super planning heavy on the sort of more strategic level, and like listening to stuff like Tribes of Tokyo, No Evil from the various sides, I was like, I'm really not sure how these guys, like, how do you learn how to do that? Because like I'm that weird kind of autodidactic where I can't ever imagine myself doing something until I'm doing it. I feel like Masks has taught me a lot about the basics of, kind of tradecrafty, project planning, Here's how to not fuck up.
If you have 5 cultists in a warehouse and you have 3 investigators outside, how many cultists can you kill without calling the police?
Well, what are my other assets?
Yeah.
Oh, I have a plank and 2 rubber bands. Excellent.
Or near the end, a lightning gun.
Yeah.
Fine.
Well, yeah.
Very good.
That was when shit got real.
Yeah. Shit did. Well, you guys really used up all those lightning guns.
I love lightning guns.
You didn't give us extra points, but we had guns.
Yeah, that's true. And so finally, Anne, any final thoughts on Masks?
Well, I really liked it. It took me a while, I think, to get into it in this system, since the first I was familiar with D&D, and it was really tough for me to spend points. Like, that drove me crazy. I'm like, I can run out of points? This is not cool. So I didn't want to spend them. I wanted to save them. But once I got used to the system, I really enjoy it now. And one of my favorite things, actually, about RPGs is the cooperative nature, and that you're, all a team. So I feel like this group, like Sean said, really worked together well as a team. So I really enjoyed.
We rarely went off script.
Yeah, we were mostly on the same page, and we did cool things together to kind of back each other up. Let's be work well off of each
Anne
other.
and I were always really good.
Actually, I had one more memory, but if Anne, you got more?
No, that's it.
Okay, so in case listeners were curious, Balumko did have a plan for the warhead. So I was going to play it up that the Yithians were planning to drop the warhead in the frickin' painting that Ross got me stuck in, and leave that.
Did you guys burn that?
No.
Okay.
No, we
No,
sent
that
it
house
somewhere.
didn't catch on fire.
No, we don't. I don't remember where the painting went.
Maybe you gave it
I think we gave it to the
maybe
Yithians.
Serpent Man.
Yeah.
Painting.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah.
What I wanted to do was say that the Yithians had ordered me to get the warhead, and they were going to drop it in there, and then I was going to have the stupid lizard go, "Oh, what's this for? Brushing your teeth?" Boom!
Okay, you might want to let the game master know about what the NPCs are supposed to be doing.
No,
It was the end of the campaign.
he has truly absorbed Caleb's wisdom and was not going to tell you a word of that till it was happening.
Like, what do you like? And just so you know, Anne, that whole thing about anxiety about spending points. I've talked to the guy who made the system, Robin Laws at Gen Con, and he said, I brought that up because you're not the other. And he's like, no, yeah, you're supposed to. That's how it's
You're
supposed to.
supposed to feel anxious about it.
Yeah, you're supposed to feel like uncertain.
Is that supposed to stall you so you're actually stopping to think about what you're doing instead of just
it's
acting?
meant for a horror game. It was first designed as a horror game, so you're supposed to feel some trepidation when you're spending those points. My final thoughts. I'm really glad I got to finish this and run it, and and that you all really got into it. That you guys really embraced it, it was a very. I know now not to know what to expect from players when a game or a campaign starts, but this is the best case scenario.
I was gonna say, of all the things I have been around for and seen you run, it took this one for you to learn that?
No, I've known that. I've learned over the years to do this.
Does he end every postmortem with that statement?
Yeah.
Should.
I should. So, but no, this was the best case. I think this was. I hope everyone else out there really enjoys this, because as much fun as we had playing and running it. So, the world is safe for now. But the Crawling Chaos comes. Hail Nyarlathotep. This has been RPPR episode whatever. The Masks of Nyarlathotep postmortem. Bye.
Hester.
Noted.